Oh, well, that's visible right there. Oak Street Bootmakers, handcrafted in the USA. So, I was just doing some videos of my older red boots. These are, I think, the last pair I bought before getting into P&W. So these were just a few years ago, probably, I guess, early 2022, maybe. These were kind of my last, I think this is kind of what set me off to like go and finally buy Nicks because of the kind of disappointments with these, which I'll talk about. So just kind of jumping right in, this is the trench boot. You can see back there in the box maybe, size 12 trench boot, natural Chromexcel. You could imagine, it's pretty obvious looking at it. It was a cap toe. The original pair I bought online on a sale was the day-night sole. This is obviously leather. Those were an 11.5D because Oak Street says they run true to size. I don't agree with them. I bought them and I wore them. I think I may have even worn them outdoors a couple times, like once maybe, but like I barely, yeah, I guess I wore them a couple times. And it was pinching my big toe, just my, I don't know, I feel like my toes were just getting really pinched. It was not like the normal, this last is very wide. It wasn't like a side, it was a vertical pinch. I'd never experienced that in a boot before. It is kind of a lower toe, but it was like pinching when I would walk. I think that's what it was. It wasn't even just, I think standing was okay. It was when I was walking, I was really feeling a pinch. And I reached out to them, I forget, I'm trying to remember her name, the customer service person they had. Haley or something back then, or maybe she's still there. After talking with her, or via email, I don't think it was. Maybe it was a phone call. I can't remember, but they basically said, yeah, you probably need to go up to a 12. So I did. 12 honestly is a little bit loose. I don't know, generous. I toyed around with the way these were built. This is the old factory. Was they have like a pour-on footbed and they give you a leather insole that you put in on top. It's kind of a strange construction. I don't know if I should see if I can open this guy up real quick. Take out that shoe tree. And then here you go. So they come with this. So this is their own, like this just comes with the boot, right? You can see right there, 12D. I don't know if this is going to focus right there on the insole. And you can see like my foot's as big as I feel like you can probably get on this. I think any more and I would have some toe smash. But it's not tight. It's like comfortable, but it's such a strange build these used to be. Let me see if I can get this with the light. But that's a pour-on insole, and the heel, if you look, is like a cardboard. Sorry, I'm trying to get the light to get in there, but you can actually see there's like some rust on some of those nails. It's kind of crude, but yeah, that yellow is like pour-on. It's not leather. It's like a soft pour-on, and it's kind of a weird construction, to be honest. They said they were changing the construction, or when I talked to them, but I think one of the, I don't know, like part of the issue I had too was I didn't realize this design, this construction design. I thought it had like some kind of glue, like cement failure, and that the insole was falling out, and it shouldn't be like that. And it's almost weird that they didn't clarify the design, like the construction or the build, and they're just like, oh yeah, okay, that sounds like a problem. And then with their size issue, you probably should go up to a 12 anyway, kind of thing. They didn't just say, no, that's how we build our boots. But they did say something about changing a factory, so I'm guessing the later factory, because I think this may have been one of the PW Minor factory that shut down. This may have been from that factory. Oak Street doesn't make their own boots, they just contract with a different, boot factories basically to build their boots for them. Similarly, like their shoes, like their loafers and boat shoes, all that stuff, I believe are all made by Rancourt and Company. I feel like mixed information online, but I'm almost certain of it because I have a pair of Rancourts. I've compared the construction. But so that kind of was strange. I mean, otherwise the boot's kind of nice. I don't like how obvious, if you look at this, the welt stitching looks kind of terrible. You can see all the little holes. It's the worst I've ever seen. Other brands don't do a great job either. Here, let me get the light. Do you see how you could see all the holes for the welt stitching? Just looks awful. They should have realized this when they were building them and made them all with split reverse welts or storm welts to hide that. And then it would have been a non-issue. But having a normal welt and having all those holes, it just looks like crap. So that was an issue. By the way, they come with nice boot bags. Not that that means much, but let me show you something else that was a problem. You know, people go, oh, you know, handmade, whatever, is like an excuse. But like this one, the stitching on the toe cap is kind of wonky. You can see it kind of curves in and out. You look at that. It's like wide, narrow, very wide, and then tightens way back in. When you look down at your foot, though, you always see that, and it just looks like crap. This pair looks completely fine. Like, I get handmade, yada, 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 but that looks great. I'm not expecting it to be the exact millimeter separation the whole way, but it's consistent. The other one just doesn't look as good. So, if you look at the two, you know, one of them kind of sucks. And they're consistently bad with the stitch things I mentioned. So just like the other one, you can see all the weld stitching. It's kind of rough. I mean, it's a fair boot. What I found is I think I was wearing these with not thick boot socks, but I have some socks that are kind of a little bit thicker than my thin preferred socks, and that seemed to help. Lately, though, I don't know, the last time I wore these, I actually wore them with the typical thin socks I usually wear, and they felt fine. So they don't run considering I'm a half over Brannock on these, they don't, calling this true to size, the only thing I could think of is they mean like true to, their site doesn't say this, their site says true to your Brannock is I believe what it would tell you. But I think maybe what they're getting at is like true to your sneaker size. I'm seeing that with cowboy boots too, where what they call true to size seems to be your sneaker size, not your Brannock size. Basically, you got to go up versus down. You know, the Wolverine 1000 Mile I talked about, a lot of boot brands, you know, Parkhurst, you got to seem to go a half down from Brannock because they run big. Obviously, P&W, there's variants on that, but you know, generally people don't get their Brannock. They usually go down a little bit, like a half. Some people go down more than a half. So these sizing a little bit weird, but I guess if you just bought them in your sneaker size, you're probably good to go. The leather is nice. You know, you see a lot of the whole clicking, this and that, and bad clicking, and yada. The Chromexcel on this is nice. Like, you know, maybe there's a little bit of loose grain on one of the shafts, I think. Yeah, so this might bother some people. It doesn't look great, but I don't really care. I guess what annoys me is they don't look the same. But it's nice. This is like pretty thick cut of Chromexcel and smelled great, looks good. And you know, they're stitching. I'm sure it's, you know, I assume those factories are somewhat machine instead of hand stitched. I guess, I don't know for sure. But the stitching, there's no real problems with it at all. I've seen more problematic stitching on P&W stuff, to be honest, because they're hand stitching with the machine. I mean, a person's hand feeding it through the sewing machine versus some more machine process. But, you know, as an example, I know for a fact this tongue is a thicker Chromexcel than the Chromexcel tongue on those Viberg 310 N1 field boots or whatever. The ones I have in the reverse Chromexcel, the marine field they call it. Those have a very thin tongue, which is fine. It's totally fine. It's easy. But this is a thicker tongue. It's not stupid, you know, Truman 8-ounce horse rump thick. But, you know, this is probably 5-ounce. It's a nice tongue. It has significance to give you padding on when you lace them up. But at the same time, it's very flexible. So, yeah, I don't know. These boots, I think when you get them on sale, they're a good deal, considering they're still made in USA. You have to like the aesthetic. I don't really like this aesthetic anymore of the real super flat, you know, no arch, really low heel look. I don't really like that. I'm kind of over that look. But they're comfortable, and for people who don't want to do the high heels and the high arches, then that's good for them. And you know, it's a decent made boot. I think their regular prices are a little bit ludicrous, and I kind of don't like how you don't know who's really making them because they don't have their own factory. You know, Parkhurst, as an example, is very clear. If you do any reading with them or people talking about it, they explicitly tell you now that they don't make them in USA and they're using factories in Spain and factories in Portugal, and they're not hiding it. Whereas I feel like Oak Street is kind of slick. No, I don't think they're slick about it, but I think they think they're being slick where they sort of project themselves as making their own boots, but they're not. They're just contracting through factories. So they're not a true, in my mind, you know, boot maker. It's more of a brand who's doing runs where they find a factory and, you know, negotiate a run with a certain build of leather, and maybe they have some input in the pattern, but it's not the same thing. I wouldn't call yourself a boot maker when you don't make the boots. You use a factory, you know, versus Nicks or Whites or Franks or Wesco or Truman, you know, where they literally, the factory's in the same building. It's like they make their own boots. They're boot makers. Oak Street's not a boot maker. They're not a shoemaker either. So I kind of, because of that, I don't recommend them. But if that doesn't bother you and you like the makeup, they definitely do some interesting makeups. Anyway, I figured I'd talk about these. This is kind of a boot I rarely wear, but it's become relegated to, honestly, like dressier occasions. So I don't like to wear dress shoes much anymore, but when I go to a fancier event where I need to wear slacks or something, obviously not black tie, that kind of super fancy, but something you're just wearing, you know, don't wear jeans, don't wear normal pants, you know, you gotta wear slacks, button-down shirt kind of vibe, you know, what people used to call business casual, but now business casual is super casual with everybody working at home. But those types of deals, I'll wear these because honestly, I've paired these with a navy and gray slacks, and it looks good. I think the navy really worked actually. I think the Chromexcel with the navy looked really good, and they look kind of dressy with the cap toe and the brogue cap toe and everything. So this is sort of my pseudo dressier boot when the rare event requires me to have that, and they're great for that. So yeah, that's an Oak Street Bootmaker boot. Cheers.